Hello my friends. So I mentioned in my last video that I've been taking some classes that have been forcing us to read some really woke, progressive literature. And I just wanted to give you a little taste, just a little morsel of how woke this literature is that we've had to read. And mind you, this class is supposed to be teaching us academic writing. It's supposed to be teaching us just how to write an academic paper. It's a first-year class. The only reason I'm taking it is because I transferred in. I didn't take it. It's a requirement to graduate. It really sucks. It's just a bunch of freshmen in the class. But it's supposed to be just a general how to write an academic paper class. But here's the this woke literature, this very progressive anti-white literature that we've had to read. This is No Man's Land by Eula Biss. And I'll just read a couple sections from it. This is the first one. And then there was my mother, who grew up in a western suburb of Chicago, but has, for almost 20 years now, lived in an old farmhouse in rural New York. She told me she had heard from someone that the neighborhood I was moving into might not be safe, that there were gangs there. "Ma," I said to her, "what do you know about gangs, you old racist? You racist old lady, why don't you just die already? You don't know anything about gangs. You don't know anything about black people. What do you know about gangs?" And she said, "I know enough. I know that they're out there, which is about as much as I know. And about as much as most white folks who talk about gangs seem to know, which is to say, nothing." You don't know shit about gangs, you old white woman. Why are you being racist? Gangs are real. This is the next line. Gangs are real, but they are also conceptual. That's fucking deep. That's fucking... Woo! That's deep. Gangs are real, but they are also conceptual. The word gang is frequently used to avoid using the word black in a way that might be offensive. For instance, by pairing it with a suggestion of fear. How dare you fear bad black neighborhoods? How dare you fear the 50% of the crime comes from like 5% of the population? You fucking racist. My cousin recently traveled to South Africa, where someone with her background would typically be considered neither white nor black, but colored, a distinct racial group in South Africa. Her skin is light enough that she was most often taken to be white, which was something she was prepared for, having traveled in other parts of Africa. But she was not prepared for what it meant to be white in South Africa. Is she referring to the targeted violence against whites in South Africa? Could she possibly be alluding to that? To the fact that whites in South Africa are killed at a disproportionate rate, especially the farmers? So much so that the farmers have been leaving en masse, and that the president has begged them to return? Maybe, but probably not. So she was not prepared for what it meant to be white in South Africa, which was to be reminded at every possible opportunity that she was not safe and that she must be afraid. And she was not prepared for how seductive that fear would become. Oh, white people just love to be afraid. Oh, pathetic whitehoids love to be afraid. They just love making up stuff about other races. How pathetic. How omniscient it would be. So she spent most of her time there in taxis and in hotels and in, quote, safe places where she would be surrounded by white people. Quote, safe. You're not safe around white people. You know that? It's dangerous around white people. Everyone knows that the neighborhoods you don't want to go into are the white neighborhoods, not the black neighborhoods, not the Hispanic neighborhoods, the white neighborhoods. And everyone knows that the countries that you want to stay away from, the most dangerous countries in the world, they're all white. That's why nobody wants to immigrate to white countries, right? Everyone wants to migrate to Africa or the Middle East or other safe places like that. When she returned home, she told me, I realized this is what white people do to each other. They cultivate each other's fear. It's very violent. It's very violent. White people cultivate each other's fear, and it's very violent. You can't make this shit up. The next paragraph is, we are afraid, my husband suggests, because we have guilty consciences. We secretly suspect that we might have more than we deserve. We secretly suspect that we might have more than we deserve. We might have more than we deserve. We should give more to the non-whites. We know that white folks have reaped some ill-gotten gains in this country. This country is built on an Indian burial ground. You know that? It's built on the backs of slaves. And so, privately, quietly, as a result of our own complicated guilt, we believe that we deserve to be hated, to be hurt, and to be killed. Oh. Really? I wonder if Eulabis is really white, or maybe she's got a touch of the chosen blood in there. Privately, quietly, as a result of our own complicated guilt, we believe that we deserve to be hated, to be hurt, and to be killed. I bet 10 to 1. 10 to fucking 1 that this woman is a masochist. Like, she likes it a little. I don't know, this might be against the terms of service of YouTube, but she likes it a little, you know what, in the you know where. Next section. This part is bizarre. I chose this part to read to you because it just shows how wacko this author is. The next two sections they're not exactly anti-white, but they're there to show you how wacko she is. On my first day in Rogers Park, my downstairs neighbor, a family of European immigrants, whom I met on my way out to swim, warned me that a boy had drowned by the breakwater not too long ago. I was in my bathing suit when they told me this, holding a towel. And, they told me, another neighbor, walking his dog on the beach, had recently found a human arm. It was part of a body. It was part of the body of a boy who had been killed in gang warfare. Must be a conceptual gang warfare, though. A conceptual body of a boy. This wasn't real. Because we know gangs are real, but they're also conceptual. These dead bodies of little boys that are killed in gang warfare are real, but they're also conceptual. It was part of the body of a boy who had been killed in gang warfare and then cut up with a tree saw. Some fucking serious shit. The torso was found later, they told me, farther up the shore, but the head was never found. I went for my swim, avoiding the breakwater and pressing back a new terror of heads with open mouths at the bottom of the lake. When I retold the neighbor's story to my husband later, he fucking laughed. He laughed. A tree saw? He asked, still laughing. Why is that funny? Why would that be funny? It's funny to reflect on this woman's insanity, but if you were really in that situation and you were living in a neighborhood and you found out, oh, the beach right down the block, they found a fucking kid's body on the beach and it was cut up with a tree saw. Is that something you'd find funny? That you'd want to laugh at? I wouldn't. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Next section. This is another one that really shows what a fucking goofy goober this woman is. The section title is In the Water. Very dramatic. My love of swimming in open water, in lakes and oceans, is tempered only by my fear of what I cannot see beneath those waters. My mind imagines into the depths a nightmare landscape of grabbing hands and spinning metal blades and dark sucking voids into which I will be pulled and not return. Very dramatic. As a charm against my terror of the unseen, I have, for many years now, always entered the water silently repeating to myself this command: trust the water. And for some time after an incident in which one of my feet brushed against the other, and I swam for shore frantically in a gasping panic, breathing water in the process and choking painfully, I added, "Don't be afraid of your own feet." Can you imagine how just wound up and anxiety-ridden this woman is? Full of guilty conscience, full of anxiety, and it's just something else, that's for sure. I have one more section to read to you. Oh, here's a good one. This isn't the last one, but here's another good one. The warm weather brings the riffraff out, my landlord observed to me not long after I moved in. When my landlord said this, I was standing on the sidewalk in front of our building in my bathing suit, still dripping from the lake, and a boy leaving the park asked if I had a quarter. I laughed and told the boy that I don't typically carry change in my bathing suit, but he remained blank-faced, as uninterested as a toll collector. Maybe he just didn't even understand what she said. His request, I suspect, had very little to do with any money that I may have had or any money that he may have needed. The exchange was intended to be, like so many of my exchanges with my neighbors, a ritual offering. Is she out of her mind? Some little black kid comes up, asks her for money, and she thinks that this is like a bizarre ritual offering? When I walk from my apartment to the train, I'm asked for money by all variety of people. Old men and young boys and women with babies. A whole variety of people. I bet they're all black though. Their manner of request is always different. But they... Where's the next one? Hold on a second. Okay, here. I found it. Their manner of request is always different, but they are always black, and I am always white. Sometimes I give money, and sometimes I do not. But I do not feel good about it either way, and the transaction never fails to be complicated. I I do not know whether my neighbors think, as I do, of these quarters and dollars as a kind of tax on my presence here. A tax that, although I resent it, is more than fair. Please take it all. Take it all. Take everything. You need it more than me. You need that hit of crack more than me. It's a tax. I shouldn't be here. I'm a privileged white person. God damn. This stuff's hard to read. Here's the last section that I'll read to you. One day in the late summer, after we moved to Rogers Park, my husband came home from the fruit market with a bag of tomatoes and a large watermelon, which he had carried the half-mile from the market to our house, stopping once to let some children feel how heavy it was. I don't believe that happened, but okay, that's a weird little detail. Who does that? Can you imagine, like, kids walking up and, oh, can I feel how heavy that is? Never happens. Anyway, they're just really connected with the neighborhood. It just wants to show how they are the woke white people who they let little black kids feel the weight of the watermelon. They just give them a little tease, because they know they like the watermelon. He was flushed from the sun, and as he split the melon, still warm, my husband mused, I hope more white people don't move here. My husband isn't prone to sentimentality of any kind, or to worrying about white people. So I asked him why, and he said, because kids were playing basketball by the school, and they had cheerleaders cheering them on, and black men say hello to me on the street. And I love our little fruit market, and I don't want this place to change. But this place probably will change, if only because this is not a city where integrated neighborhoods last very long. And we are the people for whom the new coffee shop has opened, and the pet grooming store. You know your neighborhood is gentrifying, my sister observes, when the pet grooming store arrives. Gentrification is a word that agitates my husband. It bothers him because he thinks that the people who tend to use the word negatively, white artists and academics, people like me, are exactly the people who benefit from the process of gentrification. I think you should define the word gentrification, my husband tells me now. I ask him what he would say it means, and he pauses for a long moment, very thoughtful, thinking, analyzing, evaluating. He comes up with this. It means that an area is generally improved, he says finally, but in such a way that everything worthwhile about it is destroyed. And that's it. That's all I'm going to read to you. That's all I'll bother you with. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. And this isn't the only one. This isn't the only reading like this that we've done. It's hard to see how this is going to help us become better academic writers. But it definitely shoves that narrative down your throat, that white guilt narrative. So, just wanted to share that with you. Maybe you'll find it amusing, interesting. But that's the shit that we've been reading. So, thank you for watching.